Coach O is making significantly less money to coach at LSU this go round as opposed to this last go round. And I want to talk about how that figures into his thinking, how that figures into LSU's thinking. Let's talk about what LSU recruits, mostly commits, think of Ed Orgeron returning to the Bayou Bengals. And Brian Kelly knew exactly when the Brian Kelly era was over, and it is much sooner than I think many people might have thought, especially as, it started off pretty well for Brian Kelly, at least on the football field. And is Greg Sankey actually softening on a 24-team college football playoff? Let's talk about that after the bumper. What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year-round. If you're into that, hit that subscribe button, like this video, answer the question in the comments below. How do you feel about Greg Sankey saying you're probably going to see a lot more of his coaches and athletic directors, those that he represents in the Southeastern Conference, say that they would like to go to a 24-team playoff? This has been a tremendously large topic of conversation this week, as there have been quite a few administrative conversations this week about the future of college football, from what looks like a total desolation of the SCORE Act, which was Congress's last attempt to try to bring some form of regulation and governance to college football. It was pulled from the floor, guys. That's really, really bad. Things don't make it to the floor unless you think you got the votes. For you to pull it late means you ain't got it. And because Congress is politics, you're looking at probably not getting something like the SCORE Act back onto the table for the foreseeable future, because the House is at least predicted to flip to the Democrats. And the lady that would be in charge of basically this sort of legislation has said, I'm not really into the retardation of the growth of athletes' rights, which what many people would think that are opposing the SCORE Act think this would do. It's a very thorny issue. It's got a lot of different layers to it. And whenever you have an issue that is this large and this big, it is almost impossible to create consensus, which is how we end up going to courts. And we've already seen this, right, as it relates to eligibility, which is one of the things the SCORE Act was going to try to do, is cap the age for which you could basically play college football, in addition to trying to help college football and college sports come up with an enforcement arm that actually works, as opposed to one that you can just fight in court and probably get a decision reduced or overturned. So Trinidad Chambliss finds a favorable judge in the state of Mississippi. He gets to play another year of college football, while Joey Aguilar doesn't find a favorable judge in Tennessee, and he is forced to go ply his trade in the NFL. Now, even in Lubbock, Texas, you're going to see Brendan Sorsby have his attempt to seek an injunction to play this year settled. Either he's going to get that injunction and be able to play at Texas Tech this season, or the NCAA prevails and Texas Tech is still fighting uphill to try to get its $5 million quarterback on the football field after he admitted to gambling on his team while he was at Indiana, and whether or not basically kicking him out of school and then trying to reinstate him into school is going to be enough to expedite the process for the NCAA's investigation. If the NCAA got what it wanted, which is to say, hey, we stipulated on the facts, and because we stipulated on the facts, here's the penalty. The penalty is probably about 6 games or half the season. And for Texas Tech, this is bad, right? Because they'd be down to the third-string quarterback, their second-string quarterback still rehabbing from an ACL injury. But all these things were up before Congress, and now they're just kind of out, which means that college football is back to what it's always been, which is trying to govern itself in addition to helping the NCAA or not helping the NCAA enforce laws or bylaws that they all say they want to see on the books. Now, University of Georgia President Jerry Moorhead has been very loud about saying, look, I don't think that we can continue to do this. And when we get to SEC media meetings next week, he expects to put before university presidents, athletic directors, and coaches an idea that the SEC is going to have to govern itself, and we're going to have to police each other, and we're going to have to come up with our own rules for how we play within this conference, which is not new, right? But you're going to find people asking the question, okay, is this going to disadvantage us when it comes to playing against other conferences like the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12, and as far as what they will allow versus what we won't allow? And I don't think anybody in the SEC is going to do that. I don't think Jerry Moorhead wants to do that. I think it's more like we got to have something on the books that we can all look at each other square in the eye and say, this is right and this is wrong, no matter what the rest of the conferences are going to do. But that is a harder issue to discuss, I think, than the 2014 playoff. 2014 playoff gets a lot of buzz because the Big Ten is unanimous in its desire to want to extend the playoff field to 24 teams from 12 and skip straight over 16. I thought that Greg Sankey would be against this until he went on Feinbaum earlier this week, and he said, quote, "What you will hear next week is a lot of our coaches, a lot of our athletic directors, and probably some others think 24 is the right direction. What we've said is that could ultimately be the proper direction. We just don't think you leap to that without information. And research and understanding the marketplace informs that decision." It's actually quite, I think, the drawback from what Sankey had said, which is, I want 16 if we're going to do an extension, and I'm not really into an extension at all, because he also looks around and he says, hey, how is this going to benefit the SEC? And we've already wanted the SEC to play 9-game conference schedule. And even the Big Ten had a quiet conversation about playing a 10-game conference schedule, which, by the way, I would be totally for, because that would, I think, remove one of those games that just doesn't matter. I'm very into getting rid of these games that don't matter. I don't particularly care that Ohio State plays Akron or even Cincinnati to that degree, but Cincinnati at least is a Power 4 university. I would like to see some NFL style scheduling in college football, because I think it's also going to grow the pie. More people showing up to watch Ohio State and Texas than Texas play UTEP and Ohio State play Ohio, right? That's just the thing. And I would like to see each and every one of these programs have to play a really interesting and difficult schedule. If you got to play in the SEC, cool. You also need to play a team in the ACC and a team in the Big 12 or a team in the Big 10. I think that would be fun. I think that would help everybody. And it would make the value of 10 wins even more important. We wouldn't see that many teams get there because you wouldn't be able to pad your schedule anymore with crappy teams, or I should say teams that aren't as talented as yours, who aren't working on the same resource scale as yours. Meanwhile, you have coaches that really want to fortify their position for getting in the college football playoff. Another way to do that is to just double the field. As many coaches are coming around to this idea of understanding, yes, I am being judged on whether or not I made the college football playoff, so I should probably try to make the college football playoff. Now, if you extend the field to 24 teams, you're probably going to get rid of conference championship games. And if you get rid of conference championship games, the estimate is that the Power 4 loses $200 million. But would you make up that money in a 24 team? Quite possibly. Just think about it this way. If you go from 12 to 24, could college football bring in, instead of, say, $7.6 billion from ESPN for the rights to the college football playoff, could it bring in closer to $15 billion for the rights to the college football playoff? And would it be played across several different networks, not unlike the way that the NBA and the NFL is played today, right? You see games on Prime. You'll see games on Netflix. You'll see games on Fox. You'll see games on CBS. You'll see games on NBC. You'll see games on ABC, ESPN, so forth, so on. I'm also for getting rid of all these games that don't matter, right? I don't care about 5-7 or 6-6 bowl teams. I really don't care much about 7-5 bowl teams. I want to see the best 24 teams in the playoff, and I would like to see those teams that get top 8 seeds or top 4 seeds get a home game. That was one of the coolest things about the 12-team playoff, and being able to double the field means more games. Also, if you start the playoffs the first week of December, you could finish by the first week of January, condense the schedule, and or start it a week earlier, and I think that's going to help everybody. I think if you still have some opposition to this, it's fair, right? There will be some unintended consequences to go along with this. But in as far as everybody needing to make more money and everybody being in on this idea of the college football playoff and playing for championships matters, then let's do it and try to better centralize and naturalize what is essentially a regional sport. Now, there are some other things that need to be taken into account. Could you go from 16 to 24? Sure. But I think the appetite for just going to 16 is a non-starter for both the Big Ten and the SEC. And once again, we're talking about the Big Ten and the SEC because those are the two conferences with the controlling votes for what you're going to do with the college football playoff as it revolves around the college football playoff board of managers. And I think the structures are going to help you short-term and long-term. I think short-term for 16, I think long-term for 24. Would you need to blow it up past 24 teams? I mean, not necessarily, but think about it this way. As there are 138 FBS teams, and we're probably going to see more teams try to join the FBS as the money gets bigger, like Sacramento State, for instance, or North Dakota State. You can't afford to grow the number of teams to get in the tournament. The reason I think you can get away with 76 teams in an NCAA tournament, for instance, or 68 teams, or 96 teams, or whatever, is because you got 300 programs that play Division I basketball, right? So less than a third of them are going to get in. And I think if that math continues to go for the college football playoff and FBS, it makes more sense to me. I think getting into the playoff ought to be an accomplishment and is an accomplishment. And I think playing a saltier schedule is going to make us all much happier because there just aren't going to be games that you don't have to watch. Like, not for nothing, only the biggest Ohio State fan in the world is going to watch Ohio State beat the hell out of Grambling. Okay, what if you could make that Ohio State-Texas game and pivot straight from Ohio State-Texas to, say, Ohio State versus Miami again, right? That would be a lot of fun. And I think as we continue to have those discussions, more ways of making the game bigger and more nationalized are going to come on. So I think it's huge of Greg Sankey to say, hey, this is what we're thinking and this is why we're thinking it. And we'll have these discussions at SEC media meetings and see what happens. All right. After the break, let's talk about Ed Orgeron and how this has proven to be an absolute win in as far as rehiring him to coach at LSU one more time. Back on Adapt and Respond with RJ Young. If you are new to the channel, subscribe and like this video and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think that Ed Orgeron returning to LSU has been a tremendous win just in the few days since his hiring? And I think the more news comes out of this, the better LSU fans feel about it. They already felt good about it because they love Coach O, EAUX. But also, when you take a look at what he's getting paid and what he's being asked to do, it's even, I think, a little bit cooler than that. So, according to Front Office Sports, Coach O is getting paid $9 million between 2016 and 2021 on average as head coach at LSU. Not bad, right? Famously got a $17 million buyout from LSU to walk away and was still getting paid that buyout through December of last year. Since his rehiring, I wondered just what the special assistant for recruiting and defense might get paid at LSU, given Coach O led a team to a national championship at LSU and is responsible for one of the greatest college football teams of all time. And it's just $100,000. That, for me, is saying quite a bit about what Ed Orgeron thinks of LSU, how he wants to help Lane Kiffin, and how he wants to see LSU return to being a national power. I think that's remarkable stuff. I think that's really, really cool stuff. Now, on top of all of that, I've wanted to know what it is that recruits think of Ed Orgeron and his return to LSU, because it dawned on me that there is a group of players that only know about Ed Orgeron as a legend. Now, remember, 2019 is 7 years ago, okay? 7 years ago. So an 18-year-old that is committed to LSU was 11, right? And there are still more that are younger that he's recruiting now. So what are their memories of him except, a larger than life character who would say "Go Tigers" at the end of every other interview, and "Yes, sir" at the end of most statements. And also, they probably haven't read Meat Market, where he introduces himself as the head coach at Ole Miss, and he's talking about, "I'm Ed Orgeron, and I hate quarterbacks." Defensive line coach, right? Coached in Miami, coached at LSU, coached at USC, coached at Tennessee. I mean, but the dude is Bayou born, Bayou bred, and that's one of the reasons people love him. LSU has been consistent about this. If you love the purple and gold, they will ride with you. I can say a lot of nasty things about Louisiana and LSU. That ain't one of them. If you are on their team, they are on your team. They love you back, man. It's difficult for those things to come to the forefront, though, given what we got going on nationally, socially, politically. But it is true. And that is one of the real miracles of life. And that's one of the things that people like to prize about sports is you can be sitting next to somebody that believes something politically that you could never, ever wrap your head around. It might even offend you. But if they're wearing purple and gold and you're wearing purple and gold and y'all rooting for the Tigers, y'all got something in common. And y'all going to have that thing in common for the foreseeable future, right? Now, that Ed Orgeron gets to introduce himself as a recruiting character to this group of players is, I think, going to be very cool for them and very cool for their parents. So we had 5-star tight end Ahmad Hudson, who's from Ruston, Louisiana, who's committed to LSU just earlier, I believe this month. He said, upon hearing that Ed O is back, I love it. I wanted to go there as a kid. Now I get the chance to actually talk to Coach O. He brought a natty to the boot. What else can I say? That is what you would expect a 5-star Louisiana and LSU commit to say. 4-star athlete Braylon Calais, said, Natty loaded. Look at what he did when he was here, and now he's back with Coach Kiffin. And we also, it keeps going. We got Chance Archangel, which, by the way, sounds like an absolute superhero's name. That's fantastic. 4-star committed in 2028 class. I'm definitely excited. His being around the program stands out. A repeat of the 2019 15-0. Coach O is an LSU legend for sure. It's hard not to love that move. The energy is going to be crazy with him back around the program. All these things I think are mostly correct and lead into this conversation that we're having about just what it is that Ed O means. But Ed O also understands what it means when you ain't going to get it right. When it's probably already out of reach for you. So the guy that they hired to go succeed, Ed O, at LSU, famously, Brian Kelly, who left the Notre Dame job to take this job because he saw what Nick Saban was able to do 20 years earlier. And he's like, I want to win a national championship. And if you can win a national championship with 3 different head coaches, Nick Saban, 03, Les Miles in 07 and 11, and then, you got Ed O in 2019, Brian Kelly was thinking, I can do that too. So Brian Kelly shows up, and people forget, or maybe they don't, LSU played for the SEC championship in 2022, and they got throttled. They got beat to hell by Georgia. LSU also created a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels, who had a year of years, man, like 3,800 yards passing, 1,100 yards on the ground, and like 60 total TDs, something nasty like that, just nasty. But it didn't work. It didn't work because he didn't play for a national championship, and they didn't win an SEC championship. And it got started earlier. I don't know what the hell that was about. Man, that caught me off guard. My phone just yelling at me. Is already getting off to a bad start. So when did Brian Kelly really out himself to Coach O? As soon as he took center court, when he got hired, he started talking to folks in a fake Bayou accent. Now people assign you with being fake. Now people will assign you with being suspect, and players don't trust you, and you've already lost them before you even get there. And I think in that way, Ed Orgeron was right. You cannot be inauthentic with anybody in this culture at all. People are so used to being misled and being told that what is in front of them is untrue. And we have less of a faith in institutions today than we've ever had. So what people crave is authenticity, and for you to be the same person you are. Like I say this, I say, if you're a mean cuss, be the same mean cuss with everybody you meet, because then people assign consistency with you. Formula One fan. Max Verstappen has become, people's favorite driver. 1, he's very good. 2, he's only about racing. And 3, I can count on his disposition to be the same. He's not going to change who he is and how he gets down, and that is an endearing quality. It's a quality you must have as a football coach. Nick Saban had it, did wonders. Marcus Freeman has it in Notre Dame, he's doing wonders. Ryan Day has it at Ohio State, doing wonders. Kirby Smart has it at Georgia, doing wonders. That is a lesson that Brian Kelly is still learning. Shows you just how hard-headed some people can be. All right, if you like the show and you like the longer shows, let me know about that in the comments below, and send this to someone that you know likes college football and would like to join the conversation. All right, that's it for me. Doses.